get pretty darn big. You can see she's a gorgeous color. These guys are dark black and then have this iridescent kind of belly on them. Super, super cool and super pretty, yeah. And so these guys, they have a really cool adaptation. They are not venomous, but they are actually immune to the venom of like rattlesnakes and stuff. She has antibodies in her own body that make it so that if she were bit by a rattlesnake, she's totally fine. And why is that important? Well, one of her favorite things to eat is rattlesnakes. These guys love to eat other snakes. In fact, one of their favorites is copperheads, apparently. Now, fortunately, I don't have to give her those. She'll eat mice and other things for me, which of course they'll do in the wild too. But eating other snakes is pretty cool because that kind of helps balance the ecosystem as a whole. So she has those antibodies in her, which is really neat. They are born with them. Other snakes that are able to do that are king snakes. If you guys are familiar with those guys, there's a lot of different king snakes out there. And that's the other type of snake we have here in house, by the way, is a little king snake. And then king cobras have that same thing as well. And they actually eat one another, which is why they're immune to the venom. So she herself doesn't have venom, she doesn't have those fangs. She's more of a constrictor and uses her powerful body, obviously, to subdue her prey. Now, indigo snakes are threatened. There's not a whole lot of them out there. So they are part of what's called the SSP, and basically that's a species survival plan. And that's all over, and what it does is it helps out zoos and aquariums, whoever has exotic animals that are endangered or threatened, and we basically collaborate with everybody around, and we make sure that we have a healthy breeding system around not even just the US, but around the world. So she was actually purposely bred at Brevard Zoo, and between Brevard Zoo and the North Carolina Zoo, they breed these guys to hopefully reintroduce them to the wild when they're about 2 to 3 years of age. So she's kind of on loan with us right now. She may or may not be released. It's up to them and their geneticists. Not all of them go back into the wild. Some of them just become, makers of more snakes. But yeah, she is a part of that. That's how we got her. Now, one of the cool things about why it's interesting that they can release these guys is because they have what's called delayed implantation, which means we could have her hang out with a guy friend, and then they could release her, and she could not have those eggs. She could basically hold them and not lay them for up to 5 years, which is really, really cool. So yeah, they could release her, let her go where they need more of these guys out there in the wild, which we do here, especially in Florida, in the sandy areas, and then she can lay her eggs when she feels comfortable, she has enough resources and stuff. So the SSP is really, really important, and every modern zoo and aquarium is a part of that to hopefully make more responsible breeding for any animals that are endangered or threatened. So, well, I hope you guys enjoy her. She is gorgeous, isn't she? So give her a cheer.
Yay!
And by the way, one more fun fact about this snake, she can actually move 2.5 miles per hour. Yeah, that's pretty fast. It's basically, if she needed to, she could go 6 feet in 1 second.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they're a speedy snake, but they're actually really cool, and they're very docile and even natured. So have a great...
Now, when you guys think of wildlife in the state of Florida, besides Miss Charlotte, what's the first animal you guys think of? Yeah, the American alligator. This right here is my friend Bayou. Bayou is a little bit younger than Charlotte. He's actually 1 year old. He and his sister came to us on loan as well. So when he gets a little bit bigger, he'll probably go back, make some more friends as well. But Bayou here, as you're getting a great look at him, we talk about these guys a little bit more. You can find them if you're from Louisiana all the way down to Florida, even parts of Texas. Rivers, lakes, streams, golf courses, if I have any golfers out there. They are pretty prevalent, that's for sure. We have learned to coexist with them, but we definitely want to make sure that we know that they're not pets, although he's awfully cute at the moment. These guys can get 400 to 600 pounds and upwards towards 13 feet in length. That's pretty much the average. Now, granted, they can be a little bit smaller, a little bit larger. We have seen some that are pretty impressive in size, but hopefully he won't get that big. We'll need a lot more trainers out here, that's for sure. But looking at him, you guys might get a great look. It depends on his mood here. Looks like he's just in for the good head scratches. But how many teeth do you think he has in his mouth? 9. that's a little low. 120 is closer.
Ayan.
10.
120.
119. I'll help you out a little bit. And he has about 80 teeth. Yeah, so with that being said, they actually go through 2,000 to 3,000 teeth in their lifetime.
Oh my
So they will
goodness.
fall out and regrow. If you are familiar with sharks, it's pretty similar. So a lot of dentist visits, that's for sure. But moving on down, you might notice people will call them scales, but they're actually called osteoderms. It is just how they protect themselves. This armor here is pretty firm. It would be able to withstand a lot that they might have in their natural environment. But if you see the different colorations, that's actually similar to that of a fingerprint. So those different colors will be unique to Bayou. As they get older, they will get darker. It does help them camouflage a bit more, but when they are babies, this coloration is actually better for them because they are spending a little bit more time at the surface, so it helps them blend in above and below. They do stay with mom for about 2 years, so they do stay, they're the only reptile that does so. The reason for that is they rely on mom's protection. Now, they don't get their food or anything like that from them, so Mr. Bayou's just perfectly fine with me feeding him for sure. He always wants the extra snacks. But they do stay with them, and they will actually be able to make nests and lay their eggs with this tail. This tail makes a sweeping motion, it goes back and forth, and it makes something called gator holes. Those holes are where mom will lay those eggs, or other species might use as well. They even can be used in times of drought for water supply. But when those eggs are in there, the temperature of the soil actually determines the gender of the babies in those eggs. So the cooler the soil, so below about 86 degrees, all of those eggs are going to hatch female. If it's above 95 degrees, it's actually all going to hatch male, and obviously somewhere in between you'll get a mixed group of males and females, which is pretty neat. Now, these guys have been around for over 250 million years, but in 1967, they were actually on the endangered species list. But through 20 years of conservation efforts, they were actually off of that list in 1987, and it was the same year they became the state reptile of Florida. So these guys are going to be around for many more years to come, hopefully 250 million more. As long as we keep our distance, admire them from afar, we want to make sure that we keep their habitats alive for them because it's super important. And most importantly, we don't want to feed them. I know that sometimes they might come on up, but we want to make sure that they keep our distance from us. They are more afraid of us than we are of them, and feeding them could lead them to not being quite afraid of us. So we want to make sure that they're out there, like I said, for over 250 more million years. But I think Bayou did an amazing job hanging out with us today. Let's go ahead and give this handsome fella a big round of applause. Now, before we say goodbye, I am going to need help with this one. See you later. Thanks, guys.
All right. I know, I got a cuddly one for you guys. This is my friend Boris. Boris is an Asian small-clawed otter. He just came from swimming, so he's going to be drying off on this towel here. It's one of their favorite things to do is play and snug up in different towels. So it's one of their favorite immersion items we give them. These guys, of course, are great swimmers, love to be in the water, but when they're not, they don't like to be wet, which is fair. So they're usually going to dry off on something, and towels are one of their favorites. Plus, he's in the mustelid family. That's skunks and weasels. What would he have in common with skunks and weasels? Smells. Yeah, I heard someone say it. Yeah. So he's a little smelly too. He has a natural musky odor. He has a scent gland. So he's also marking this towel to make sure that if any other otter comes after him, they know that it's Boris's towel and not anybody else's. He is 17. Typically, otters live to be around 20, but sometimes a little bit older in human care. As you can see, he's got a ton of energy, so he will hopefully be around with us for years to come. They are the smallest of the 13 different species of otters out there, and they are found in rivers, lakes, and streams of Southeast Asia and China. Normally, since they're smaller, they're going to be in bigger family groups to, have more defense from predators, kind of gang up. I know. It's a rough life when you're Boris, for sure. So you're typically going to see a mom and a dad and their kiddos. Anybody know what a baby otter's called? A pup, you're exactly right. Yeah, you can also call them kits as well. When pups or kits are born, they're completely blind, helpless. They do not come out of the burrow for at least 2 to 3 months. When they do start venturing out, do you guys think they naturally know how to swim? No, yes, split crab. Some animals do. The sea lion pups we had born this summer, which you guys definitely have to check out if you haven't already, they were in their day one. They weren't the most graceful swimmers, but they knew how to do it right away. These guys are kind of like us. They have to be taught by mom and dad how to swim. So swimming lessons start about 3 or 4 months of age. They're not pretty good at it at first, but once they get the hang of it, of course, they're made for the water. He's got partially webbed toes up here in front, made for swimming. He can also shut his ears and his nose while he's under the water so that water doesn't get in there. And all this fur he has, it's like a wetsuit. He has 450,000 hairs per square inch over his entire body. So he is really, really built for that water life. Now when he's not in the water and he's digging around for grubs and other things to eat, these guys are what's called habitat engineers. They're constantly, digging around in the rainforest floor, and they actually help regenerate all that plant growth. So he doesn't realize he's doing it, but he's making sure those rainforests stay nice and healthy, and the trees are growing in new places. He's not an endangered species. However, those rainforests do have different threats, and there are animals out there that are definitely endangered. A big one in his area is sourcing palm oil. Palm oil is a big one. It's in a lot of our products, but unfortunately, there's an easy, less expensive way to get it, and that takes the whole forest with it, but there's also a more sustainable way. So if you guys have a few extra minutes at the grocery store, make sure you kind of know what products you're getting, and try to get sustainably sourced palm oil products. It'll definitely help out the rainforest that these guys are from. We want to make sure we can see his family out there for future generations. So I think it's nap time, Boris. What do you think? These guys sleep about 2/3 of their day. Not a bad life whatsoever. So we're going to take our sneaky towel and head on out. But give Boris a big round of applause.
Yay.
Don't worry, we got one more fun animal coming on out for you.
Is everyone enjoying meeting our animals so far?
Yeah.
Well, like Heather said, we're going to invite one more of our friends on out here. You might hear him prior to him coming out. He does like to make a lot of noise. We joke around. He's probably a construction worker in his past life. He'll probably check out this box right here or this one when he comes on out. It is a natural behavior that they would do in their environment. And if you guys haven't caught my drift yet, I'm trying not to give away too many surprises. But here he comes. This is Newman.
Aww.
Oh, there it is.
Oh.
Newman is a 21-year-old Southern African ground hornbill, As you can see, he does spend a lot of his time on the ground. He actually came to us from another facility. He was born in SEAWORLD San Antonio. He went on a couple of dates in between being born there. He decided that he was not really interested in his own species. He is what we call imprinted. So he identifies more as a human than he does as a bird. So you might see him getting some head scratches from Heather up here. It's one of his favorite pastimes for sure. But you guys are getting a great look of him up in this box here. I want to point out that red area. That was actually how we tell a boy from a girl. Underneath, if it had a deep purple in the middle, it would actually be a female. So they are pretty similar in size, but that is definitely one feature once they get their adult plumage. Now you might also get a look, we'll give him a second here. He has these big, beautiful eyelashes. Those eyelashes that you might be able to see up on that screen, they are a little difficult to see, but I pay big money for those, yeah. Those eyelashes are actually just modified feathers. Will help protect his eyes from the sun, just like the brim on your hat. So these guys are from Africa. They do spend a lot of time in that sunshine, but they do have that adaptation as well as that red area that will release some excess heat because it does not have any feathers on it. So it does help them regulate their body temperature for sure. Now Newman here, as I said, is 21 years old. The lifespan out in their natural habitat is about 35 to 50, and sometimes even 70 in managed care. Yeah, so they live a little bit longer. They get free medical, dental, and vision. Yeah, great health plan. But as he's checking on out, these guys have the choice to participate if they would like. Sometimes they like to choose their own adventure. Yeah, that's totally okay. Newman knows he's more than welcome to hang out with Heather, or he might go check out that tent. It's one of his favorite things. He likes to take a nap in there. That's why the opening is closed at the moment. But he is learning a lot of new behaviors. These guys are super smart. And one of the things that does face threats out there with them, they are endangered, and it is because they, talking about laying down and making nests, they will only make a nest in one type of tree. So unfortunately that tree is few and far between, and each couple of hornbills will only make a nest every 90 years because it's not available. So, SeaWorld Conservation Fund has actually partnered with people on the ground there to help make these trees, and that these guys have found suitable to lay their eggs and make nests. Now, when those babies are born and they hatch out of those eggs, if there are more than one egg, the parents only have the ability to take care of one. So that project also has the ability to hand raise them with puppets. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the condors and things like that. You could raise them without them imprinting like Newman, and they could be reintroduced back to their environment. Now, it looks like Newman is a bit distracted right here. Let's go ahead and give him a big round of applause. I think he did a phenomenal job. Seems like he has one more trick up his sleeve. Let's give him another big round of applause for that. Now, as we conclude our journey through Rescue Tales, it is a reminder that every animal, no matter how big or small, deserves love, compassion, and a second chance. Here at SeaWorld, we are honored to be able to offer that second chance, and for nearly 60 years, we have rescued over 41,000 animals with the goal of rehabilitating and releasing them back to their natural habitat. And in fact, this year alone, right here at SeaWorld Orlando, we have already returned 49 sea turtles and 35 manatees. Let's give it up for our rescue team and veterinary staff. They did an amazing job. And those efforts are never finished. Through the dedication of our animal care staff, as well as compassionate individuals like yourselves, these stories of hope and healing continue to unfold every single day. So until next time, remember, cherish every tale. Within each one lies a story worth saving.
Nakatuog magalang.